are an ape, and not in the loose, insulting way people mean it at the school lunch table, but in the precise, taxonomic, this is literally what you are way that biology has known for decades. The real question isn't why you look like one, it's why you look so different from the ones behind the glass at the zoo. And by the end of this, you'll never look at your own hands the same way again. What that actually means is concrete, not metaphorical. There's a family called Hominidae, pronounced just like it sounds, hominids, and it's not a poetic grouping or a philosophical category. It's a clade, meaning a single branch of the tree of life that includes every species descended from one common ancestor. Inside that branch, gorillas, orangutans, bonobos, chimpanzees, and you. Not you as a stand-in for animals in general. You, specifically, sitting in that list between the bonobos and the chimpanzees, because that's where the genomic evidence puts you. This isn't classification by vibe, it's classification by inheritance. And the inheritance is extraordinary. You share roughly 98 to 99% of your functional DNA with chimpanzees and bonobos. Here's what that number actually means. It doesn't mean you're almost a chimpanzee, the way a knockoff handbag is almost the real thing. It means the biological instructions for building a body, the proteins, the cell structures, the developmental signals that turn a single fertilized cell into a working organism, are nearly identical. The same genes that wire up your visual cortex are wiring up a bonobo's. The same developmental pathway that builds your hand builds theirs. The instructions aren't similar. They're the same document with a handful of edits. Which brings you to the anatomy, because this is where it stops being abstract. Look at your hand. 5 fingers, flat nails instead of claws, a palm designed for gripping. Now picture a gorilla's hand laid flat next to yours. And I mean really picture it, because the proportions are almost jarring. The same number of fingers, the same nail beds, the same basic skeletal architecture from wrist to fingertip. The gorilla's hand is larger, yes, and the fingers are longer relative to the palm, but you are looking at the same blueprint. That blueprint traces back to a common ancestor that lived roughly 6 to 7 million years ago, and it has been inherited, not reinvented, by every great ape on the planet since. The shared features don't stop at the hand. Forward-facing eyes, both of yours, both of the gorillas, exist because depth perception was a survival tool for animals moving through complex, three-dimensional environments. 5 toes with nails. A large brain relative to body size, which is a trait that runs through the entire Hominidae family, not just the human branch. No external tail, which distinguishes the great apes from monkeys, another thing people mix up constantly. And a skeletal structure from the shoulder socket to the hip joint that is recognizably, undeniably, the same basic design across every member of the family. None of this is coincidence. These aren't features that evolved independently and happened to converge. They are inherited characteristics, passed down from a shared ancestor, modified by millions of years of different pressures, but never fundamentally redesigned. You didn't develop forward-facing eyes because your lineage separately figured out depth perception. You have them because an ancestor you share with gorillas and orangutans already had them, and nobody in the family lost them. So here's where the tension sharpens. If the blueprint is this similar, if the DNA is this close, if the hand anatomy is this recognizable, what actually explains the gap you see when you look through that zoo glass? The upright posture, the bare skin, the face that reads as unmistakably, distinctly human. Those differences are real, but they're not a break from the ape story. They're the next chapter of it. When you look at your own hand right now, does it feel more ape-like than it did 5 minutes ago? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments below. Because what changes in the next section is the part most people find genuinely unsettling. Why you don't look more like them. Those differences you see through the zoo glass. The upright posture, the bare skin, the unmistakably human face, aren't evidence that you broke away from the ape family. They're evidence of what happens when the same ape blueprint gets edited by a few million years of very specific pressure. Start with the posture, because it rewired almost everything. Roughly 4 to 6 million years ago, your ancestors were moving through open savanna environments. Less tree canopy, more ground, more distance to cover. Walking upright turned out to be a survival advantage, not because it was elegant, but because it was efficient. A bipedal ape, bipedal just means two-legged, nothing more exotic than that, burns significantly less energy covering long distances than a knuckle walker does. So the pelvis widened and tilted, the legs lengthened, and the skull, instead of sitting in front of the spine the way a gorilla's does, repositioned directly on top of it. That last part is the detail that produces the silhouette you recognize as human. One structural shift, millions of downstream consequences. Then the skin. Your closest living relatives, gorillas, orangutans, the bonobos from the previous section, are covered in dense fur. You are not. The leading hypothesis for why is thermoregulation. A bipedal ape running long distances across open terrain in heat generates an enormous amount of body warmth, and fur traps it. Losing the fur and multiplying sweat glands instead was a solution to a very specific engineering problem. The side effect, and this one matters, is that your skin became suddenly visible. Pigmentation, which had been hidden under a coat of hair, was now the outermost layer. That's why human skin varies so dramatically across populations. When melanin is your primary sun shield instead of fur, the environment you live in shapes how much of it you need. The face is where it gets genuinely strange. You have a chin. No other living ape does. Not gorillas, not orangutans, not bonobos. The human chin appears to be tied to the mechanics of language and jaw stress, though researchers are still working out exactly why it's so pronounced in our lineage and absent everywhere else in the family. Your brow ridges are dramatically smaller than a gorilla's heavy shelf of bone. And then there's the sclera, the whites of your eyes, visible around the iris. Every other great ape has dark sclera, which conceals the direction of their gaze. Yours are white, which broadcasts exactly where you're looking. That's not a flaw, it's a feature. In a species whose survival strategy became cooperation and communication, letting others track your attention is an advantage, not a vulnerability. Here's the one that tends to stop people cold. Humans are, in a precise biological sense, apes that never fully grew up. The term for this is neoteny, retaining juvenile features into adulthood. A young gorilla has a rounder skull, a flatter face, and larger eyes relative to its face than an adult gorilla does. You, as an adult human, have all three of those features. We are, morphologically speaking, a version of the great ape body plan that kept some of its early developmental settings switched on. The blueprint didn't get replaced. Parts of it just stopped updating. And that's the payoff the whole question was always pointing toward. Every feature that makes you look human, the upright stance, the bare skin, the forward skull, the visible whites of your eyes, the face that reads as distinctly yours, is a chapter in the same story that makes you look like an ape. Evolution didn't write a new book. It edited the one that was already there. So the next time you're standing at the zoo, looking through that glass at a gorilla or an orangutan, you're not seeing a distant relative on a separate branch. You're seeing a living version of the same family document, just a different set of edits, under different pressures, over the same unbroken span of time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.